With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and yeah, we're talking Star Wars because why not? This is an interesting one. If true, this is a rumor that's been floating around the last couple days. I missed it because I got sick and I just didn't upload anything. But it says Colin Trevorrow fired from Star Wars Episode 9 due to disagreements over The Last Jedi. Now, as a person who has been very vocal about my disliking of The Last Jedi, I'm sitting there going, like, reaching for my popcorn, like, ooh, tell me more, tell me more. So it says here, back in September, it was announced that Jurassic World helmer Colin Trevorrow had parted ways with Lucasfilm and would not be directing Star Wars Episode 9 due to creative differences. And then other reports claimed that he was fired for being unbearable. But I haven't really heard that from any other source, to be honest with you. So take that with a grain of salt. We certainly caution having a pinch of salt ready for this one. One rumor coming out of Reddit claims to have some inside information into the creative differences. And they all stem from Trevorrow having issues with Star Wars The Last Jedi, specifically, and this is kind of spoilerific here, the deaths of Luke Skywalker and Supreme Leader Snoke. And the thing is, most people, I would argue, had, those who were critical of the film at least, had issues with Luke Skywalker's death and Snoke going down as well, because they just, like, they shouldn't have died. It just doesn't make any sense that they did. It was not a solid narrative choice. And I'm currently reading the Last Jedi book right now, so you can check out my Star Wars book club where I do a review and recap of every single chapter appearing on the channel. But shilling aside, I'm hoping that the book goes into further detail about this kind of stuff, because ultimately it just felt so kind of right? And at the time, back in September, sure, we were 3 months away from The Last Jedi coming out, but the work print would have already been done, and Trevorrow probably would have already seen it, and he would have already definitely read the script. He would have already been working on Episode 9. So yeah, there's probably a lot there they had some fights over. So it says here, there were two key things Trevorrow wanted to be changed, and they were not minor. These two things have been known for a while around Disney. Firstly, he wanted Luke to still be alive in Episode 9. He strongly disagreed with killing Luke off in 8 when he had just reintroduced Luke and Leia to be a pivotal part of his script. With Leia's Force Infinity revealed in a much more brother-sister way that was apparently going to be beautiful and tragic, Mark Hamill loved it. We were on the same page, as he said about Trevorrow's storyline. However, Kennedy and Johnson wanted Luke dead, period. Second, he wanted Snoke to live, as his backstory was to be more discussed. Fisher died scuttling his original plan for Leia's Force Affinity reveal, of course, but he still needed Luke alive for the story he wanted to tell the end trilogy. More of a Luke handing off the baton to Rey and a Luke walking off into the sunset idea. In the last film, rather than Luke dying in 8, they refused, he argued, they fired him. Now, let's kind of put that in context with the situation involving Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They shot like 80% of the movie, and Kathleen Kennedy did not like the way that they were going with it. And by that point in time, they'd already shot like a lot of the movie. And then they were fired, and Ron Howard had to come in and basically scrap a lot of it and go back and reshoot. And as a result, there's been, again, the complications surrounding that film. But this kind of makes sense looking at how Kathleen Kennedy runs things, which is not well to say. And I hate having to always harp on that fact, but I always feel that the buck stops with her, and that she has yet to actually acknowledge a lot of the problems that are happening within Star Wars that are entirely because of her. She's responsible for, I should say. So it says here, now it's entirely possible that this is Bantha Poodoo, but as the report claims, Mark Hamill did praise Colin Trevorrow's plans for Luke Skywalker in Episode 9, so perhaps there's some truth in it. However, Trevorrow didn't leave the project until September 2017, a year after filming on The Last Jedi got underway, at which point he'd surely have been fully aware that Luke and Snoke weren't going to be available to him. So even if his original vision did include Luke, it's hard to imagine he'd have spent the next 12 months arguing for last major Jedi changes and working on a script that completely went against the previous chapter, or that Disney and Lucasfilm would have let him go for that long before giving him the chop. The thing is, it could be. All right. So in September 2017, the movie was finished. The effects were, the print was locked, right? The print was locked. They were clearly well into their CGI stuff. So maybe what it was maybe this is how it went down. Trevorrow just could not get to that next hump. He couldn't get to that next step. He couldn't figure out where to take it. And maybe that was it. Because I mean, honestly, let's face it. Carrie Fisher's death, it threw a wrench in things, and Rian Johnson chose to keep her alive at the end of the movie, and I think that was a bad call. Because what are we going to do with her in episode 9? If they didn't shoot any of the stuff that would be carrying over in episode 9, because we know they had no plan, it just doesn't make any damn sense to me. They really, really, really dropped the ball here, and I think they know they dropped the ball, and that's probably what Colin Trevorrow had felt maybe that he had made a mistake on, or that he couldn't get around that. Because let me kind of just surmise this. I'm putting this out there. This is in no way based in reality, but think about this for a second. Colin Trevorrow first came from Safety Not Guaranteed, right? A little independent movie with Aubrey Plaza and Mark Duplass. Really good movie. Freaking love that movie. Right? He came off of that one, got picked up by Amblin, by Spielberg to direct Jurassic World. So he sat down, he worked on the script, did Jurassic World, $1.6 billion worldwide. Okay. So at this point, the dude can handle a franchise, but he didn't walk into it blind. There was mentorship there. The mentorship was with Steven Spielberg. He worked closely with him to get the story right. I think to get the setting, to get the feel of it right. He went back to the originals, watched at least the first one, and took a lot of inspiration from that. Hence why we saw a lot of, the original park that popped up in that one scene in Jurassic World. So he was clearly trying to draw inspiration from the past in order to then bring it to the present. And that, I think, is something he was wanting to do with Star Wars Episode 9. I think he wanted to pay homage to not only George Lucas, but probably continue what J.J. Abrams had started, considering the fact that if you really, really, really want to think about it, both J.J. Abrams and both Colin Trevorrow are both, I keep saying the word both, but they are both kind of pupils of Spielberg. No, that's very true. Look at Super 8. Right? It felt like you're watching a Spielberg film from the 80s. Jurassic World felt like you were watching Jurassic Park 2, essentially. They are both looking at Spielberg and pulling their cues from him, wanting to pay him respect. So they're both relatively cut from the same cloth, at least in my opinion. And I think with what JJ had set up in episode 7 and what Ryan threw away in episode 8, I think that ultimately Colin Trevorrow wanted to come back and find a way to kind of bring back the magic that was in episode 7. Because while the movie may have had some problems, and it did recycle a couple things, obviously, the magic was ultimately still there, right? I still can't watch episode 7 without freaking tearing up when Han dies. It gets me every time. But there was almost no magic in The Last Jedi, even though we saw probably like the most Force usage pretty much ever. It felt hollow because there was nothing there that they were paying homage back to. They weren't, Rian Johnson wasn't keeping in line with what Lucas had created or what JJ had built. And considering the fact that Lucas and JJ and Colin Trevorrow all have Spielberg in common, that was the key element that was missing. That wonder, that imagination, that whimsy, that fantasy, that version that went into the space opera. And I think if anything, and again, I am wildly speculating, but I think if anything, Trevorrow could not connect back to source. Given everything that Johnson had done, everything Johnson had screwed up, I think that's what it was, and I think that's why he bailed out, because Kathleen Kennedy backs Rian Johnson 100%, and I don't know why. I do not know why. I don't get it. Not one damn bit. But this is where we are, and this is what's going on. So this is my theory. A rumor for a rumor, so to speak. But I want to know your guys' thoughts on this one. Do you think that it's possible that Trevorrow was fired because of The Last Jedi? Do you think it's just because he was unbearable to work with? Do you think that Kathleen Kennedy has the ability to run Lucasfilm properly? And if not, who would replace her? These are questions I have, and I want to hear your answer. Also, if you guys haven't already, thumbs up the video and subscribe to the channel and share it around and check back often for more commentary from me. Also, if you want to win a copy of Justice League, I'm giving one away on March 10th over on the community tab. So all you got to do is subscribe and comment. And if you just want to see more from me, and I hope you do, you can click or you can do that right now.